Hey, welcome. I am super delighted, elated even, that so many of you wanted to join us here today for this jam session. I'm also very happy and humbled to be allowed to speak here in the first place. Now, I wouldn't call it a childhood dream, but at least it's a man-childhood dream. So, let's see. Slide. My name is Jonas Kjellberg. I'm from Sweden. I'm 38 years old. This is a pretty old picture. Back then I had dreams. I still have dreams. I did back then as well. And I am the Chief Product Officer at Reactional Music, a Swedish company. And we have this general musical frameworks. It's built in C, highly portable to any type of device. And most notably, it's a note-by-note interactive music system. Reactional is also a music licensing platform for game developers. And Reactional is a plugin available for Unreal utilizing MetaSounds. Now, the title of this talk is From Music Jam to Interactive Game Music in 10 Minutes. It's a very condensed title. It might sound a bit hyperbolic, but hopefully we'll get there. And I am actually a bit nervous of how this will go. But mostly because I'm using a Windows laptop and haven't done that in like 5 years. So obviously I cannot do this on my own, which is why I would like to introduce you to my good friends from Lavender Sound.
Hey everybody, my name is Jay. I am the co-producer of a live electronic group called Lavender Sound. We are here on behalf of our record label Perception Records, working with the incredible team at Reactional Music. We're going to be doing a live production demo where Jeff and I are going to be working up here, cooking up improvised beat on the spot to then pass over to our friend Jonas here to put into the Reactional engine and demonstrate this incredible piece of tech that he's built. So it should be a lot of fun. We're super excited to be here. And also got to plug our music, Lavender Sound. We got a new album dropping on Friday, so please check it out. Thank you all for being here. This is going to be a great, great presentation by Jonas and Reactional Music, so give it up.
What an intro. And we go quite long back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we met this morning. But we have spoken before last week. We spoke, yeah. Okay, so moving on. To summarize then, the guys will compose a short piece of music, and then we will automatically convert this into a procedural playback format. Then we will design musical interactivity on top of this using a software called Reactional Composer. And once ready, we can bring it into Unreal and play it back note by note using samplers and MetaSound. The big question though, why? Why this talk and why a note-by-note procedural music system? And that is because music in games needs to be better. We are literally living in the future. Well, technically we're living in the present, but technology-wise and the leaps we're seeing year to year, it feels like the future. Yet, how music is utilized in games, it has kind of stalled. And here is a brief history of interactive music that I made up while sitting in my hotel room. But I think it kind of tracks. It really makes you think, at least. So way back when, music was actually generated on the fly, on the hardware. Then we kind of moved into music that was played back using general MIDI sound sets with the Sound Blaster cards and whatnot. And this was also played back note by note. And there were also some studios and companies experimenting with interactive music on a procedural level. And then, of course, CD-ROM audio happened, and suddenly we could have music that was of high sonic quality inside the games. So suddenly, this note-by-note music was just a linear track on a CD. Then, for the past 20 years or so, people have been cooking up different kinds of stem and loop playback systems. And that's sort of how interactive music has been done for these few decades. And it wasn't really until Quartz was released that Unreal was able to do sample accurate audio scheduling, which is a huge deal. And my first Unreal game I worked on was a fairly large indie game on UE4. And I tried building these music systems there, but they were super hard to keep in sync and would often drift out of time. Now, I think it's just awesome to see how much the Epic Audio team is pushing MetaSounds and audio tech overall into games. So a huge thanks from me for that. And coming from an art music background, so I forgot to tell you that I'm a composer, and I couldn't really make a living doing electroacoustic art music. So then I started making game music, and then I started doing technical audio design and building music systems, and then eventually software development. But coming from my background, I worked with all these different frameworks like MaxMSP or Super Collider, and for visuals I used processing and open frameworks. And today I would just go straight to Unreal and do all of that because the toolsets have evolved so much. So Epic, specifically Aaron and the audio team, and I and the rest of Reactional, we share the same philosophy, I think, and that is that audio should be treated with the same respect as all of the other facets of game development, and that audio music should get the same shiny treatment. So, like, do we as developers or players even need realistic eyelash physics when music interactivity is like if an enemy attacks fade in battle music? So it's time that music was prioritized, and we need to see the same technological leaps being taken here. And that is why I think that music needs to be played back procedurally, note by note. Which is ironic, seeing as that is how music in games started in the first place. So the benefits of this is that every note is being played back live inside the game using in-game synths or sampler instruments. And that means that at any point we can change tempo, dynamics, tonality, harmony, tuning, instrumentation, density, instrument ranges, and whatever we can think of really. So another pain point that I felt as a games composer was the workflow. And it comes down to all the time spent editing and authoring all the files and loops that you have to create. And then you have to put them into a middleware, for instance, and set everything up for playback. And that is really not something that I consider creative work. It's just something that had to be done. And therefore, one of the things that I set out to do with our authoring tool, Reactional Composer, is to make that process as painless as possible. So essentially, you drag and drop your whole DAW session into Reactional Composer, and it would automatically pull all the music data out from there, but also render all the audio needed to play back the music note by note inside the game. And here are some of the musical transformations that are available for use in-game. In the background here, you can see a bit of this composer software. We can have a look at that later. So this is something that I want you to think about. So compose procedural music. Normally, when you think of procedural music, you think of some kind of randomness, or as we heard on a great talk here yesterday, controlled variance. And that's super well and good for making music that has a certain artistic endeavor or appeal. But I think for game music, you need some sort of base truth to base your music on, and go from there, make that into procedural music. So that's why I think that you should be able to compose as you normally would, but then running in-game, you can affect that music and make it hyper-interactive. So now I'd like to play a short snippet of what that type of playback sounds like or unlocks. That's actually my voice. You can't pay people to make audio logos, you have to do it yourself. So that was the same 4-second loop. Actually, you barely could hear it at the start, but it was a 4-second loop first as a WAV file, and then using a procedural playback. And it might have been hard to pick out as it's quite subtle, but the second procedural version is actually much more interactive. So there are obviously beautiful and amazing scores that are being created today, where some of it is purely linear and triggered by a specific event. And some scores are really pushing the stem and loop system to its limits by having multiple variations of the same piece in different keys with certain logic to switch between those. But that is a respectful amount of work just getting something up and running, and the same thing would be trivial to do instead with a procedural music system. So in this video example, we saw a danger parameter, and here we see on the top some of how that is set up. It actually contains 7 or 8 different interactive plugins in a row here. But once exported and loaded into Unreal, all we need to do is call upon this value, and all these musical transformations will happen to the music. We just need a name and a normalized float as a control value. Now let's talk about Unreal and MetaSounds a bit. So Reactional is not specifically made for Unreal only. We have a small C library that can run on most things, and we have the same engine running in browsers even. But what we ultimately do is render PCM buffers and pipe that into audio systems. But since MetaSounds are so flexible, it was extremely easy for us to get our sound buffers into MetaSounds for further processing. So if you're ever thinking about creating your own DSP framework or effects, I can wholly recommend you pushing that output into MetaSound node, and you get a ton of functionality for free. So here's a very unsexy example of how a buffer is being pushed into MetaSounds. But this is sort of like all you need to get into the MetaSound universe. And I believe in playing on your strength. So we have spent a lot of time building this music system, but we have no resources or want to make DSP effects and build all of those things that are needed to make the music sound interesting and good, essentially. And that's what I think we ideally then use MetaSounds for. So sorry, I lost my train of thought. Now the MetaSound node here on display is called Render Audio Stereo, and all it does is really render a stereo buffer and passes it to other nodes. But since we are internally running these sampler instruments, we can have a buffer from each and every one of those into different MetaSounds nodes, and we can spatialize those, and we can add any type of DSP effect that you can build within MetaSounds to those instruments. So here is a demo scene that we're going to have a look at. And this is going to play back an interactive theme, we call it, like an interactive procedural composition. And we'll showcase how you can interface with that within Unreal. And hopefully the audio level is enough, otherwise you can maybe push it up a little bit. We'll see. It hasn't started yet, so... what? There we go. So we see on the keyboard here that there are callbacks from these synths happening. And then we can switch between different sections of the music. There's also a concept of stingers, so that's a short musical phrase. and that will always adapt to whatever music is being played in the background. So here we have these interactive macros that can affect the music. Here are some callbacks. And here are the fun bits. So now we're triggering the same instrument with MetaSound notes instead of using the built-in instruments. And now we trigger the stereo audio file, and the procedural system adapts to that music and plays back in time and in key. And switching a track, it will adapt to that as well. So, we saw the big flashing keyboard. That was blueprint callbacks for all the note on events that you get from the system. And it gives you which instrument and velocity, etc. And you see the same callback events from blueprints and as well inside MetaSounds. And using these MetaSound nodes, we can fully bypass the reactional samples we want to and solely rely on Unreal for all of the music playback, have synths that we've built with MetaSounds, and just use Reactional as a musical library, if you will. We also get callbacks for other stuff like key or musical time or structure. And with that information, we can also instruct other parts of the audio pipeline to adapt to this, so we can have sound effects that are conforming to a certain key or scale. And that was also how, when we heard that linear music track at the end there, everything was conforming to that track. And in order for that to work, these linear tracks also undergo a music analysis. So it gives us information on the key or chords or tempo and whatever you can think of, really. And then the interactive system can adapt to that. So in the future, I hope to integrate even deeper within MetaSounds. One of the things I'd like to explore together with the Unreal Audio team is a way to have multiple musical solutions playing together. So some kind of standard to be able to control chords externally, and have developers then be able to keep using chords but have our system playing in tandem. And the same goes for other musical parameters, such as scale and chords and how those are represented, so that we have a unified way of talking to each other's system. And that way we can, for instance, run stuff that we created with Cycle 74's Rainbow together with MetaSounds, together with Reactional. And last but not least, I'd like to further extend our MetaSound support so that instead of just having these sampler instrument buffers, that we actually be able to send note buffers into MetaSounds so that we can do more of a grain spatializing inside the game world. I think that'd be super cool. Now we're about 20 or something minutes in. How are you guys feeling over here?
Pretty good. Yeah, we got a cool idea cooking up.
Yeah?
Ready to show?
Sweet. Cooking up. So that brings us to this slide, because you only had 20 minutes to work on this. Let's convert this. Yes, please. So email that over. And now we're going to exit our presentation view and bring up Reaper. It's going to be Reaper, because everybody loves Reaper. After this talk, we can meet up and talk about our favorite features of Reaper if you want to.
Our least
Yeah. I'm checking my email. Have you sent it?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So the good thing about sharing a Reaper session, it's only 300 kilobytes. So let's open it up here. Cool.
Yeah, magic happens. 20 minutes or less. That's what we got for y'all. So yeah, I'll just kind of walk you through what we did. We started out with a keyboard part. Jeffrey played on a Serum synth. Everything we're doing here has been designed in Serum because it's easy and compatible with Reaper and our demo here. So then after Jeff laid down the keyboard part, we started in, I think we're in D Lydian key signature. And then we kind of just added a bass track and then built some drums around it. Super standard process for making a quick beat. You know, if you have some harmony, then add in a little bass line, some drums, easy to add a nice little arpeggiated synth melody on top after the fact. So yeah, I'll let Jeff kind of talk through his choices.
Yeah, I think when we were kind of working on this reactional thing, you know, one of the big, I think, opportunities is to create music that's a little bit more percussive because, you know, as you kind of saw in that little demo earlier, there's a lot, you know, with tempo changes and, you know, modal changes, like there's a lot of opportunity to create some really cool stuff, but starting from things that are, you know, a little bit more percussive in nature. So we have kind of a variety of different rhythms going on between the synths and then the percussion. And like, again, it's really basic percussion. There's no real effects on any of this stuff. It's all kind of Serum synths, even the drums themselves. So just kind of seeing how all this would kind of come together harmonically, melodically, and percussion wise, I think there's going to be a bunch of cool stuff here that will play nicely with Reactional. So I'm excited to see how it sounds. You know, really screw this song up a little bit. So
let's do it. So I'm gonna open up here. And then we're gonna drag and drop this session onto Composer. And this will take about 30-40 seconds, I hope. And then we can start adding these interactive macros that we can use to design. And just give us a sec here. Do you guys want to join me up here and we can cook something up together?
I like your use of my nomenclature. Cook something up.
Yeah. Nomenclature, that's a cool word. So what should we try and get done?
Maybe some kind of like velocity variation parameter, maybe a rhythmic change and then a key signature change could be cool.
Sure, let's do something with velocity. We can name this dynamics, for instance. And let's keep some of the instruments unaffected. Okay. And Jeff, what do you think?
something rhythmic.
Something rhythmic. Let's do a rhythm variance, let's call it. And then I'm going to use this drag random. It's going to push around some notes. So let's keep a bunch of them as they are, but have that effect. Some other ones. Drums. Okay, cool. Actually, let's just listen to that quickly. So pulling this up. That's nice, yeah. Let's add some more. I want to have something related to mood. So let's add a modal transpose there. Let's just keep it at that. I want to add a swing that is fun. This is probably not the most interesting part, just watching me add stuff, but the end result is probably fine. Or fun even. Let's do called notes. And we'll have some kind of density thing for that. Note probability. And of course we need tempo. I kind of took over here, I feel like, but
No, you're great. That's good.
tempo. So scale tempo. Okay, cool. There we go. Nice. And since these are all sampler instruments, we can also affect them and override them directly. So now I'm actually performing on these instruments.
He's already improved it from the version.
Okay, cool, but this is nothing. Let's put it inside the game. So we export this. And we put it into Reactional, Bundles, Unreal Fest. And then I can probably be running still. Let's open Unreal. I feel like I should have had Unreal open before standing up here.
While that loads really quick, I just want to say I think one of the most interesting things about what he just demonstrated that is subtle and maybe not noticeable to a non-musical ear, but the fact that he can manipulate rhythm, harmony, and all these things without degrading the audio quality is like groundbreaking technology. I mean, it's really the first type of thing to do this and do it in a way that can interact with another software at the same time. So it's pretty remarkable as an audio engineer and producer to watch him completely change what we just did without losing the quality of the audio or the character of the sounds we designed. It sounds exactly the same, just manipulated to his taste. So it's really impressive.
That's too kind of you. I think you're in the wrong industry. You should be in the games. Reaction instance. Okay, let's map this up. It was already set to that. Good, good, good. Okay, fingers crossed. Play. Yeah, there we go. So now we have, like you saw in the video, the callbacks here up on the keyboard. We can switch parts here. The guys who helped me with it broke the other slider. Anyway, we can look at this cool MetaSound thing. So we can take out the compose piece and have just MetaSounds. And these are not my finest work in terms of synth design. But you get the idea there. And also we can yeah, so on the synth that was playing back, that is not very nice sounding. I can just show it quickly. So it's spawning a bunch of instances of this where it gets the note on and note off triggers, and then also check how many events are in that specific frame, and they can split them out to different voices. But this is something I'd like to explore how to do even better. And I can show you something else, which is the, let's see here, global prints. In terms of playing back these instruments, that's kind of the beat we call for that. So you have a name of an instrument, and then a pitch, of course, and then a pulse rate is how often this note is allowed to be triggered, given if it's active or not. And then a velocity value, so you can map that into anything you want really inside the game. So this was dynamic, so only affecting certain instruments. Different thing here as well. We can also affect the ranges of instruments. So let's just do the bells here. So now we can push it down so that they all converge into note 64, for instance. Going up, then so to me a melody is sort of like a gesture with intent, and when you push around the ranges you get the same gesture and the same intent, but it's the different pitches that are being generated. So I think that's pretty fun. So obviously this is with great power comes great responsibility, and also there's no safeguard for making ugly music, even though it's procedural. So that's the main downside of such a system, that you have to really think about how you want these parameters to work. So Jay asked if we could play a commercial track together with this theme. So we're going to go back over here, trigger a track. This is one of the tracks, I think, as well. Now the theme is adapting.
It's combined an existing piece of music, taking what we created and changed it to be in the key of the commercial song, and at the BPM and tempo is to record it. The platform will allow you to drag your favorite songs that are in the licensing platform into your gameplay, and it'll manipulate the existing theme music in the game to match. Pretty cool.
obviously, like commercial tracks have so much more going on in terms of, you know, effects and everything, but like it's still really able to keep everything together and kind of fuse it in still a harmonic way. No pun intended, I guess. Yeah, this is amazing. And honestly, like just as a musician and you know, music maker myself, like I can already see the potential in like helping, you know, write my own music with this, because like it's giving you variations that you know that I wasn't even thinking of before, and there's like a, you know, infinite number of ways that you can take your music. Like, I mean, it's just really impressive stuff.
And I think it also creates the possibility for young people who are not necessarily trained musicians and producers to flex their creative muscles in an environment where, you know, kind of creating your own world is inherently part of what you're doing here. So adding the musical element to the creative process as a gamer, to be able to go and hang out with your friends and manipulate sound and manipulate music, kind of sets the precedent for what it takes to create, you know, art and music, and it allows people to do that without having to, you know, learn all of the tools right off the bat. So it's pretty cool opportunity to learn with.
And it's just way more fun. I mean, like I could imagine being in VR, walking around this world, creating music. It's way more fun than like, you know, scrunched over my laptop in my basement, like learning how to use Ableton. Honestly, like it just kind of brings this fun factor back to music making and you know, kind of that fusion into the game world as well.
The QR code will just bring you to that same address, so nothing special there. But here's the thank you slide. Thank you.